Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the BlockCode. In this pre-recorded interview, we talked with Isaiah Jackson. Jackson is the author of Bitcoin and Black America and co-founder of KRBE Digital Asset Group. This interview occurs during the still going polemic racial injustice protest that has shaken the United States and the world through the news. So we'll be speaking about racial injustice in tech, and also we'll be covering certain news that have come up relating to Trump and Bitcoin. So let's get right into it.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much again for making time today, Isaiah. Let's get right into it. First off, as I was already saying in the introduction, we are speaking in the midst of in such turmoil, especially in America, right? So I would like us to start knowing some things about you, right? So I looked it up. You graduated from computer science in North Carolina. I would like to know in the first place, how was your first experience working in tech?
So my first job was a teacher, and it was teaching computer science to high school students and scientific visualization. So it wasn't necessarily in tech, but education was, the public education system is not very good right now. So when I got out of it, I got into IT, which I did for 4 years before I went into Bitcoin full time. And my background is tech-based, which is sort of why I understood Bitcoin earlier than most people. And doing IT for companies, I got to see the inner workings of how convoluted like the real estate market is, because I did it for real estate law firm. So I got to see those things, and that tech background is what eventually led me to Bitcoin.
Of course, and how early did you get into Bitcoin? Are we talking 2000?
I started in 2013. October of 2013.
Okay, fair enough.
I bought Bitcoin when it was less than $200. And for those of you who are watching, I thought I was late in 2013. So everybody who joins is sort of a running joke. They think they're late. They think it's, they didn't come in at the right time. The people I looked up to, like Max Kaiser, St. Clair Skinner, they were buying Bitcoin when it was $1. So I thought I was late. Trust me, Bitcoin is very early. But yes, 2013.
Excellent. Thank you for the message. I think that a lot of people in the audience will be very pleased to know that. Okay, so did you get into Bitcoin then while you were in Reddit groups? How did you end up in Bitcoin?
Oh yeah, so Bitcoin was definitely the Wild West in 2013. I used a lot of forums. Reddit was one. Bitcoin Talk was the most prominent that I used. And there were a few things on the dark web that were articles or tutorials of how to set up a Bitcoin wallet. So you kind of had to dig to figure out how to use Bitcoin. And because I was tech savvy enough, I got it. But most people did not know what was going on. So those were some of the ways I got started. And for those of you who have wallets that are easily downloaded through a phone, my first wallet was downloaded with the wallet.dat file on my computer. There was no real app for it. Coinbase, I think, had just started, and some of the other exchanges didn't even exist. So that is, in a nutshell, how it got started.
Yeah, you had the not so user-friendly experience.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So thankfully, we've come a long way.
Well, thankfully, and a lot more to go. Now, I have this particular question that I think that you'll be great answering. Bitcoin has been seen as a revolutionary movement, not only financially, but also politically and even socially, because it promotes freedom and financial inclusion. So, do you perceive it as a social movement? And if you do you think it could be a movement that can provide a visible impact on race inclusion in tech and fintech?
Absolutely. It is as much a social movement as it is a financial movement, because whoever controls the money controls the people. So the social movements and the social engagements that we have, some of the political discourse comes from the fact that our money is tainted and is controlled. And because of that, people don't have the freedom to do what they want. They're sort of in a bind because they don't have enough money to really change anything, but they also can't stop working to be out in the streets and protest, or to read about some of the things that some of the higher level thinkers know. So I think socially, what people do, how people practice, and how inclusion will happen in the fintech space comes about with something like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is for everyone, right? And because anybody can use it, inclusion is it's a feature of Bitcoin. Everybody can use it, so that means there's nobody stopping you. And in the fintech world, that's great news. And going forward, once that money is changed and Bitcoin has sort of changed the political landscape, I think you'll start to see a lot of things we thought were, unchangeable. They will change because the money has.
Okay, great. And also staying in the same subject of the recent and ongoing protest right now in your country, there has been some projects in tech raising their voice through social media, mostly about race injustice. Does this actually help to promote inclusion? And what steps must be followed after the protest to ensure lasting results?
We need an economic solution. After the smoke clears, after the protests have sort of subsided, and once people have started to realize, hey, I've done all this protesting now, exactly how will my life change? We need an economic solution. And I propose Bitcoin as a part of that solution. And the reason being is when you look at the root of the problem is Federal Reserve and how money is distributed. It's distributed to banks, who then use that money to give to politicians who create the laws that are in place now that is basically terrorizing us now. And the system itself, your tax money that you use, funds the police terror that we are seeing for Black Americans. So what I would like to say to anybody who's trying to change how things operate, go to the root of the problem. It is the money. Everything else is sort of just smoke and mirrors, or as a result of why the money is broken. So just getting to the root of that problem. And with the unrest that has happened as a result, I'm not surprised. I say it all the time. I actually came up with the idea for the book in 2016. And the reason being was because of the same thing, protests over Mike Brown being killed. And 4 years later, here we are again. So I kind of want it to be the end of that. And I think if we have an economic solution to move away from the system, then we can actually see that change.
So you think that Bitcoin can break the cycle?
Yes, I believe it can help and assist in breaking that cycle. Now, there are a number of things that will have to change: people's mentality, socially, politically. A lot of things have to change, but I think if you get to the root of the problem, everything else sort of comes from there.
In your opinion, because of course, since the subject was always there, racism in the United States mostly, but something very interesting that has happened is that this time the subject extended. It's even being talked in Latin America, how people in different countries where it's mostly common for everyone to be like this, to be mixed races. Certainly, we're starting to talk more about race. So that's also why I'm so interested in your experience. Since we were just speaking just at the beginning before starting to record, which will be the best ways to tackle this kind of subject. It would be okay to ask you, have you ever had an experience accessing to a financial service that has been different for you while being a Black American?
Oh yeah, so I have, and one of those is discriminatory loan practices. I went for a business loan when I first started, and I'm not saying that I was necessarily the most qualified, but the bank I was trying to get a loan from actually had to pay out, because of discriminatory loans, over $100 million settlement a couple years later. So thinking back, I was like, yeah, I had pretty good qualifications. I had basically what they said, and still got denied. So I believe there was some sort of discrimination there, and that comes out of some of the other stuff I've experienced. not just with money systems. I've been assaulted by police on 2 occasions. I've experienced racism at the educational level, being told you're only here because of affirmative action. Those things are all one big combination of why I do what I do, and as a result, looking into the problem, because it's profitable to be racist. Why would they stop? But as soon as you stop the money from that, that's kind of why you start to see all these corporations putting out statements saying they love Black Lives Matter and all this stuff now, is because it's not profitable to be racist anymore. And I think Bitcoin, when you take away the money system that we have, then people say, well, it's definitely not profitable in Bitcoin to be racist because it's for everybody. What are you going to stop? So I think that all of those events have shaped how I think. And as far as money wise, yes, definitely been discriminated against.
Yeah. Some of the reasons this kind of subject, and thank you again so much for your way of explaining it. One of the reasons why this subject can be so maybe hard to handle, it's because in just thinking it as a personal opinion, you're a person and you don't want to make and you don't want people to think either that all the struggles that you ever had in your life are due to others people's perception of you. Like, I think that may be one of the reasons why calling out racism can be such a struggle too, because it's like recognizing openly that it's not that you are not qualified. It's because they just see other people see you, is how other people see you, and then recognizing it openly. It's quite a struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, moving on. Well, you already said that Bitcoin and Black America came in 2016 due to protests too. You also mentioned in the book a very curious term. I looked it up, but I want to know which is your take on it. You said Black economics. When I looked it up, it says Black market. What is Black economics?
Oh yeah. So economically, group economics is probably a better way, but for Black Americans, group economics is a practiced mostly by immigrants to America, where they came to America and they realized the outside world did not like them, did not want them. If you go back to the 20s in Ellis Island, you had a lot of immigrants come in. Even on the West Coast, we had Asian immigrants and a lot of Latino immigrants. What they did was they realized the outside world doesn't like them. They didn't try to integrate. What they said was, we're going to keep our money in our community. We're going to start businesses here. We're going to hire our children. And then the people that live in this area are going to shop here, which, of course, they get money. They buy houses there, and the value constantly increases over time. And Black people have tried with group economics, with brick and mortar stores. We've had Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had Rosewood. We had other Black Wall Streets around the country, and they were burned to the ground. So group economics is not a new concept at all. We simply have been, because of racism, white people have come in and literally burned it down to the ground because they do not want to see group economics. So what I mean when I say Black economics is getting back to the mindset that we need each other and we should ignore the outside world. Not saying that we won't have inclusion and diversity, because we already shop with other people anyway. What we need to focus on is circulating that Black dollar amongst ourselves, shopping with Black-owned businesses, starting Black-owned businesses. And I think Bitcoin is an easy way to do it, simply because you don't have anybody stopping you from doing it. It's unconfiscatable and it's censorship resistant, so nobody can actually stop it. If we wanted to practice Black economics with the fiat system, it would work to an extent. At a certain point, you would have to use a bank. So we would just be enriching another bank at a certain point. So that is what I mean by Black economics. And I think we should get back to that. And on a global scale, we can do it digitally. So you can't burn it down anymore.
Of course. And well, then we face maybe an irony, because due to not so recent, but still current statistics, actually there's a visible lack of Black people representation in the fintech and technological space. In your opinion, what is holding back Black people and Black Americans from participating more actively in fintech and in the blockchain niche?
So fintech is two of the toughest subjects combined, and Black people usually were not a part of it when it started. So financially, we're not a part of the financial system when it started. And in tech, when the tech boom happened in the 90s, Black people were not really a part of it. So what you have is two subjects combined that are two of the hardest to learn. And you're throwing it out there to Black people like, yeah, now you should join or be a part of this. And a lot of times, a lot of the older Black people are not a part of the system, that they're not very tech savvy, and financially they don't trust banks. I know a lot of older Black people who have money in the mattress. They've never really trusted banks. So breaking through that barrier is easier if you present a totally different solution. And because I think a lot of Black Americans are looking for a solution now. That's the key. Was I always told people, said when I would explain Bitcoin, they would look at the price, but every time I would talk about why they need it, they would always pause and say, I don't really need it. I have a bank account, I may have some money on the side. Now we're getting to a point where they see why they need it. And yes, we need a solution, and that's how it'll come about. And I think fintech will get that group or trickle off, because Black Americans will enter that space. And I think long term, that is really the only solution for us to have financial inclusiveness, is using tech for our advantage.
Okay, so now that we moved to the blockchain space, there also have been a few initiatives. I haven't seen it much, okay, because this is maybe a political neutral space, but there have been a few initiatives in blockchain that give leverage to talent in the Black community. Do you think so? We already know that from your perspective, Bitcoin could empower Black people, but maybe we could then move forward. What comes after this turmoil? What is next when the smoke disperses? How will the crypto community, at least in the US, will look like?
Yes. So in my opinion, the first start is education. So I'm actively doing that every day. Everyone that is in the space, the blockchain space, is actively doing that. So the next steps should be, from an economic standpoint, to get people to get skin in the game and to get them to purchase Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, to move their money out of banks for that reason, because they're funding their own terror, unfortunately. That's the next step, is to get people to recognize what it is, understand it, and then start acting on it. And then once people are actively moving it, sort of getting the media and press involved at a certain point is vital. I'm not big into watching TV or anything, but the media does push the message forward a lot faster to a lot of people. So that would be the next step after that. And then once you have sort of a media, outrage saying, hey, why are Black people leaving banks? Why is Bitcoin becoming more prominent? Then you'll start to see, I believe, the wave of because a lot of people are followers. They're just waiting for somebody else to do the work, and then they'll join in. That's when I think Bitcoin and blockchain space will take off, when people can see, hey, we were not a part of the tech space in the 90s, and there were a bunch of millionaires created. Let's be at the forefront of this revolution, which is only 11 years old. And 10 years from now, you could be looking at a Black-dominated space, which is not out of the question, because we've dominated a lot of things that we knew about. We know about sports, we know about entertainment, and then we get into it and we dominate it. So I don't see why we couldn't do the same thing in this space, not because I want to take over, but because numbers wise and talent wise, we can. So I definitely think those are the next steps, and I think that'll happen here in the next year or two.
Excellent. Okay, it's good because we both thought of sports first.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact. I mean, anytime anybody wants to make a statement about the Black community, if it's a fact, I don't disagree with it. If it's an opinion, then we can have a discussion. But yeah, factually, we dominate sports. So
excellent. Yeah. And okay, you say that you don't watch a lot of TV, but this has been everywhere. We learned very recently that President Donald Trump is allegedly against Bitcoin. And it's according to an upcoming publication by former security advisor John Bolton. Do you
Mhm.
think this could be true based on what you have lived inside of your own country? And what's the impact of this affirmation?
So two things. First things first, politicians lie. So I don't think he doesn't have Bitcoin. I think him or somebody around him knows about it. The problem is China owns most of the mining. China is one of the people who are bigger in Bitcoin than anybody else. And they were having discussions with China internationally. So that's why he threw that in there, is just focus on Bitcoin to Steve Munchkin or whoever back then. Also, second, he tweeted that Bitcoin is just thin air and that it doesn't work. And just as a coincidence, he tweeted that the same day I released my book last year, July 11, 2019. I'll never forget it because it actually was good promotion. And, you know, it kind of reassured what I thought, which was that they are watching Bitcoiners and they see when things come out, but they also want to put out there that they want to not be a part of Bitcoin because it's not the American dollar system. And I think he's just trying to save face as president because you don't want to be the president that was in power when the U.S. dollar failed, which I think he may be. If he gets reelected, I think that may happen in the next few years. He may be. So I think he's just protecting his own interests. Things they say in the media. The reason I don't watch TV is because I don't believe it. I know a lot of people in high places who own Bitcoin, and they will never say it publicly. So just going off of that, I'm pretty sure he has some somewhere, but he has to say that. That's his job. That's what he does. I just want to encourage people. Whatever politicians say, do the opposite, and that might be a pretty good slogan for the book. Is if you don't like Trump, Trump doesn't like Bitcoin, so do the opposite. So
Yeah, okay, that that might work.
I mean, if there's an easier way, you know, somebody could tell me. But I mean, that sentence right there would probably get some people to be like, "Well, yeah, I'm just do the opposite of Trump. I'm buying Bitcoin." So that should be fun to see.
Surely. And well, just to finish up, do you have any favorite projects that are in the crypto space or in the fintech space or in the tech space that are made by Black people that you like people to know about?
Oh yeah. So there is a project called Bitmari, Bitmari, created by Sinclair Skinner, who I mentioned earlier. It is a digital wallet, and some of the proceeds go to Zimbabwe women's farmers. There is what's the project? I'm sorry, Storage, another project by a Black guy from Atlanta. Decentralized storage, sort of like Dropbox. That's another blockchain project. Guap Coin by Tavonia Evans. That is a currency created to support small businesses and Black-owned businesses. And there's a few more projects out there that are addressing the issues I've discussed, not
Excellent.
necessarily owned by Black people, but could be used, like Lolly, Lolli. That's a great way to buy what you already buy. They have Walmart, Target, Sephora, whatever, and you receive cashback rewards in Bitcoin. So you do what you already do, and you receive Bitcoin for it. So these are some of the companies that I like, that I follow, that I use. And I think in the book, if you look, it's over 40 blockchain professionals. And in the second edition of the book, there will be even more. So, and Arthur Hayes, the CEO of BitMEX, he is one of the most prominent Black people in the space as well. So just shout out to them. And most Black people who are getting started, their projects will be what I talk about probably a year or two from now.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Isaiah.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.